center screen. And
we can see that they've removed the access panel on the side hatch. Excuse me. That side hatch access panel basically protects the location where we perform the side hatch leak check. So we will...
Dragon SpaceX, stand by for side hatch opening and egress. We'll be passing you off to the recovery team. And see you back in Hawthorne soon.
Dragon Captains, they're here.
So yeah, that side hatch access panel is where we are able to untorque as you can see in action now.
And the side hatch is open for the first time in 199 days. It's like we're getting some waves from Crew 7. First face they've seen back on Earth since August.
Once again, this is their first breath of fresh air in several months, and once again, the first time that the side hatch has been open. The last time it was open was the day they went to space. So it looks like here just the SpaceX team member doing initial check-in with the crew, making sure that everybody is feeling okay and feels ready to egress from the capsule. Probably letting them know that there is, no return trip at this moment, no rocket in place.
Have to wait to be reassigned for the next one, I guess. So again, Crew 7 launched back in August 26th of 2023. So in all, they spent 199 days in space. And so we will begin to see some of that safety equipment installed around the hatch just for protection purposes and for reuse capabilities. And then we'll even begin to see some of those footrests begin to be removed to just give the crew a little more space to get out.
But first, a photo opportunity.
Yep, absolutely.
We probably couldn't see it from this view, but I have a feeling that there were some thumbs up for the photo. So at this point in time, we should see some of those footrests begin to be removed. Not entirely sure what the order will be here in terms of who will egress first. It always varies from crew to crew, but it looks like we may have some footrests coming off now. Once again, this just allows the folks that are assisting the crew in their egress a little bit more room to work. Fun fact, the footrests are custom sized to each astronaut in terms of like small, medium, or large. So in order to ensure maximum safety and comfort, we customize the footrest as well as the armrest, as well as the bucket itself, the seat bucket rather, that they sit in. As every astronaut is different, and so to ensure that everybody is able to remain comfortable and safe, those items are customized for their body proportions as well as the spacesuits themselves. Speaking of spacesuits, we can see that those visors are in the open and up position. So once the crew was safely splashed down, they were given the okay to lift the visors. No need to keep those down and in the locked position once we were outside of those dynamic events. For those of you that have just recently joined us, we had a beautiful nighttime splashdown at 5:47 a.m. Eastern or 2:47 a.m. Pacific. The Dragon Endurance vehicle is now on board our recovery vessel, Megan, in the Gulf just off the coast of Florida near Pensacola, and we're now awaiting the egress or the exit of our 4 Crew 7 members, and this will be assisted out onto the recovery deck.
And the recovery vessel is actually named after NASA astronaut Megan McArthur. She flew on board Crew 2. That was my first space launch I ever got to see in person. So really special to get to see her launch. She also flew on board STS-125. So great to see Crew 7 back on board Megan's namesake. We are expecting egress here in just a couple minutes. They are working to install that safety equipment around the hatch as well as remove the footrests. And so we typically will either see the commander or the pilot egress or get out of their seats first, and that's just due to the proximity of their location to the hatch. Usually it's a little easier to get one of those two out ahead of the mission specialists on either side.
Now you mentioned the namesake for Megan. Of course, the Atlantic recovery vessel is named after Shannon Walker, who flew on the NASA Crew 1 mission. So we named these recovery vessels after our first two female astronauts to fly in our Dragon capsule. So I love the tribute there that we have paid to these incredible women that have taken part in spaceflight here at SpaceX.
So as they continue to step through those procedures, again, just a reminder, we do expect the crew to be assisted out of the vehicle as well as be assisted in standing up and getting rolled away in order for those initial medical checks. This is standard for all long-duration space flights. And they'll jump right into their post-flight reconditioning period. That begins on splashdown day. And it lasts for about 45 days to help return crew members to their pre-flight condition. Like we've mentioned, they do exercise while on board the International Space Station for a couple hours a day, and that does help maintain some bone and muscle mass and prevent that loss. But because of the microgravity environment of the International Space Station, there is still a recovery period that takes place. And again, that's about a 45-day period to just get them back to pre-flight condition.
Now, immediately after they egress from the capsule, they will be transported back into, one of the medical bays that are on board the recovery vessel, where they will be seen by the flight surgeon for a preliminary medical checkup immediately after egressing.
It looks like we are going to have our very first views of egress here.
I think that may have been Andy.
This is Andy's second space flight. He's from the European Space Agency. And Andy Mogensen now out of Crew 7 capsule. And you see he is getting assisted there. That is completely normal, and as expected, this will take place for all 4 crew members.
Yeah, this is standard procedure when we egress the NASA astronauts from Dragon. We assist them into, it's not quite a wheelchair, and it's not quite a, I can't think of the word for it. Not a gurney, but we roll them back into the medical bay, and this just helps ensure their safety. Because sometimes, even though we had amazing recovery conditions tonight, it's not always the case. Sometimes we can get wave height of a couple of feet, which could make for an unstable vessel. So, regardless of the sea conditions, we always assist the crew in getting out of the capsule and making their way back to the medical bay.
We did see some thumbs up and some cheers for Andy Mogensen as he egressed the capsule. Next up is going to be the commander of Crew 7. That's NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli. This is her first space flight.
what an experience it must be, this first time of feeling gravity for really kind of the first time, because if you're born into it and you don't really know what it's like to not feel it, this, I could imagine it would be quite an experience to feel it and really feel it for at this magnitude for the first time.
And some waves there from NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli. So next up out of the capsule will be the two mission specialists, Konstantin Borisov from Roscosmos, as well as Satoshi Furukawa from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. So if you're just joining us, Crew 7 splashed down off the coast of Florida at 2:47 a.m. Pacific. We've had two crew members already egress or exit the capsule. That was European Space Agency astronaut Andy Mogensen, as well as NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli. And there's two more astronauts on board, and we're working through those egress procedures, everything going really smoothly. Following this, the crew will fly back to shore via helicopter, and then they will fly by plane back to Houston, and from there they will go to their respective countries. Again, as we mentioned, this is the very first space flight where every single seat was occupied by a member of a different space agency. We are seeing on our screen there another one of the footrests as it is removed, just to give the crew, the recovery crew rather, a little more space in order to help get the crew out.
As we mentioned, 2 of 4 have already egressed. Excuse me. We already have Commander Jasmine Mogbelli and pilot Andreas Mogensen. They've already exited. We now have Konstantin Borisov and Satoshi Furukawa still on board. Excuse me. It's early or late.
Furukawa.
Thank you, Furukawa. Still on board the Dragon capsule. And we should see one of them egress here just momentarily.
And it looks like they're beginning to egress now. I believe this is Konstantin Borisov of Roscosmos, his first space flight. And Konstantin Borisov has successfully egressed. Some handshakes there, it looks like.
Thumbs up and happy waves.
Yep. So the remaining Crew 7 crew member inside Dragon is JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Satoshi Furukawa. Again, this is his second space flight. And so Satoshi Furukawa actually has the most time spent in space of Crew 7. He's logged a total of 366 days in space over 2 flights. So just a little over a year in space in all.
That's incredible. It looks like he is now egressing. Once again, this is standard procedure for assisting all the crew members into the medical bays.
And Satoshi Furukawa, the last member of Crew 7, now out of the vehicle.
So I just did a bit of math. Now that we have officially egressed all 4 crew members, we had an on-time splashdown at 2:47 a.m. Pacific. We lifted the capsule onto the recovery vessel at 3:14 a.m. So that was a total of 27 minutes for recovery operations. And then it was from 3:14 a.m. to 3:42 a.m. when we completed egress, another 28 minutes. So it basically took just as long to lift them out of the water as it did to bring them out of the capsule. So all in all, really efficient recovery operations. So congrats to the SpaceX recovery team on such efficient operations there.
Absolutely, less than an hour from splashdown to egress. So great to see that. And now that Jasmine, Andy, Satoshi, and Konstantin are safely back home on Earth and getting checked out by the NASA medical team, we're going to wrap up our live coverage of their return. So this all kicked off on in August of 2023 from historic launch pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. After a successful liftoff and separation from Falcon 9, Jasmine, Andy, Satoshi, and Konstantin made a 29-hour flight on board Dragon to the International Space Station. And since arriving at the space station, they spent nearly 6 months as members of Expedition 69 and 70, executing science experiments, a spacewalk, and repairs while aboard the orbiting laboratory.
Their journey home began about 19 hours ago on March 11th when they closed the hatch to Dragon and undocked from the space station at 8:20 a.m. Pacific time. After 4 successful departure burns and a phasing burn to line up their orbit, Jasmine, Andy, Satoshi, and Konstantin rested for a few hours before waking up to prepare for re-entry this morning. We jettisoned Dragon's trunk and performed our final on-orbit maneuver, the approximately 14-minute-long deorbit burn at 1:56 a.m. Pacific time or 4:56 a.m. Eastern time. And that ultimately is what put Dragon on its path home. The spacecraft re-entered the Earth's atmosphere and slowed its descent with successful deployments of 2 drogue parachutes and 4 healthy mains, with the final splashdown occurring off the coast of Pensacola, Florida at 2:47 a.m. Pacific time or 5:47 a.m. Eastern time. Now, as you saw following that successful splashdown, we saw SpaceX recovery experts move in quickly and prepare Dragon Endurance for its lift into the recovery vessel, or onto the recovery vessel, and in just a little less than an hour following splashdown, we saw Jasmine, Andy, Satoshi, and Konstantin make their way out of Dragon and into the recovery ship's medical facilities, safe and sound.
Next up, they'll catch a helicopter flight back to shore where they'll transfer to aircraft that will take them home. Jasmine, Andy, Satoshi, and Konstantin will take a NASA plane for the short flight back to Houston, and then they'll be reunited with families to bring an end to this mission. It's been an honor and a privilege to share this journey with all of you as we continue in this new era in human spaceflight.
Return today marks the end of the direct handover that we just executed after successfully launching the Crew 8 mission to the space station just a little over a week ago. It's been an incredible honor and joy to share this mission with the public. All of the teams from SpaceX and NASA continue to work hard to keep America leading the world in human spaceflight. Continue to follow SpaceX and NASA online and on social media for updates for the very latest on crew and cargo flights to and from the International Space Station.
And we will, of course, continue to share the